Hello, lovely ladies. Welcome back to our Scattered Woman Live. We have a very special guest with us today. We have Michelle Nebel, and I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit in just a minute, but I wanted to give you just the background on how I even met her. Those of you may have seen, some of you may have seen that Michelle did a guest post for me over on the blog called Must Love Dogs that went live last week before last, at some point while I was on vacation. And all of everything happened while I was gone, and I'm just totally out of the loop. But I loved her post, and I really wanted to get her on live to just talk to you a little bit more and give you some kind of background on her and what her life has been like. If you're a part of the Mom Career Restart group, we've been talking all about work-at-home mom careers, and Michelle's got some experience on that end as well. So we're gonna pull that in. And I can hear your alarm.
There's our tornado alarm. Yeah. Tornado warning in my county. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. So as I tell y'all frequently, we are dealing with stay-at-home and work-at-home moms on this, I want to say channel. This isn't really a channel, but on this page as part of the Scattered Woman crew. And so we always get funny interruptions. And sometimes it's a dog, sometimes it's a kid, and sometimes it's a tornado alarm. So if you are seeing kind of a blurry picture on Michelle's end, or you're hearing funny sounds, hopefully not like a train coming at you, because then Michelle would be needing to get off and take cover. But this is our life. This is real life with the Scattered Woman crew. So welcome to the world. All right. So I actually got to meet Michelle live and in person. Goodness, what would that have been? 4 years ago? Yeah. Whenever we were living in Owensboro. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to a La Leche League, now I'm saying it wrong, La Leche League meeting, just to try to meet people. I had I guess she had just, the day after we moved in, she turned 1. So I had a 1-year-old, and I was in the breastfeeding stage and just wanted to meet people, and Michelle was one of the leaders. And I actually don't think I ever went back to another meeting. I think I went to that one and was like, I'm good. I'm not a big groups person. I love my Facebook groups, but like in-person groups, I want to sit in a corner and I don't know what to do with myself. So, but I was so impressed with Michelle and Holly, both of them, the 2 leaders, that I found them on Facebook and stalked them and added them as friends, and have been following their journeys ever since. And Michelle had posted something about a lesson that she had learned from her dog, and I was just dumbfounded at just how profound it was and how important it was for us in our faith walks. I said, "Can you write a whole post about this?" She's like, yeah. So that's where we are. We're here. So, Michelle, that's my little intro on how I know you, but why don't you give everybody just a bit on who you are and where you're from and your background, and I will do the whole checking and sharing thing, and I will be right back.
Okay. My name's Michelle Nebel, like she said, and I am 38 years old, and I'm kind of from all over. My dad was in the Army, and we moved a lot, but now I call Owensboro, Kentucky home. My husband is a surgeon here in town. And that's what brought us to this area. We kind of moved in without anybody, with no family, no real ties, and we've made it our home. It's been a great place to have kiddos growing up. We have a son who's 13, a daughter who's 10, and my youngest daughter is 7. And we also have 3 dogs, Pax, Piper, and Porter, and we named them with letter P's to match on purpose, because when I yell in the backyard, I like it to sound coordinated. In terms of faith, I was saved and baptized when I was 6. I was brought up in Southern Baptist churches all over the place because we moved every few years, and my parents really modeled that being kind of top priority. Every time we moved into a new community, that was one of the first things that we sought out, was to have a new home church. And so I'm really grateful for that part of my upbringing. Moving was hard. I'm kind of an introvert, and being the new kid is not always easy, but I learned how to jump in and to plant your roots deep and quick and get into a small group or find a place to volunteer. And churches really became the place that we did that. And so in addition to growing my faith, it also sort of gave me some life skills for how to move into a community and be the new person and make connections. So
Sure.
a lot to be thankful for there. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I had not known that you had done all this moving around and whatnot. So it sheds a lot of light on just how you interact with people and are very welcoming and warm, because
Thank you.
you knew that you know what it's like to come into a place and not know anybody.
Absolutely. And like your comment about being in a group and feeling like, oh, what do I do now? I know that feeling, like in so many different settings. And so I definitely, when I was running the Leche League, really tried to look for folks who kind of felt that way. And it was their first time and they were nervous. And hopefully most people walked away feeling like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And I was seen and I was helped and I was, encouraged while I was here. So yeah.
Definitely. Like, had I really needed assistance with the breastfeeding part, that is where I would have gone. But we were so settled by that point. I was like, I'm good. I don't know that I need help with this, but they're really cool people. So
it's always good to know where to turn for help, even if everything's going great. Like that's kind of a life skill thing too, isn't it? Like,
for sure,
you don't have to know everything, but if you know who to go to or where to go to look for the next set of information, that's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talk about that a lot over in the Mom Career Restart, because people don't necessarily have job hunting skills that are just at their fingertips. So they need to know where to go to get to that information, or how to start an online business, or, you're doing writing now, where to find publishing information, like all of that kind of stuff. Just, we got to know where to look. And we are in the Google age. So we've got lots of information that we can go to. We just need to make sure we find good information.
That's right. There's that thing of, you can have a lot of information at your fingertips, but then finding human connection too. Those two things really go well together. So
absolutely.
That's a good thing you're providing for your crew, that they can, there's a lot of information out there, but to have like smiling face to put with it kind of helps.
Yes. And it's so much easier to go to one person and say, okay, I need help with blah, and get the information you need and put it into use and run, than it is to try to pick and choose and look everywhere. And I did that. It was not fun. I don't recommend it. Okay. So we talked a little bit just about La Leche League and how you were involved with that and teaching, and really walk us through kind of your career projection, because now you're doing something totally different.
Yeah. So my background's in education. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in early childhood education, and I spent 5 years teaching in public school classrooms. So I taught preschool, kindergarten, first grade, and third grade. And then the last year that I was in the classroom, I earned my national board certification, which as an early childhood generalist, which was really exciting. I've always been kind of a high achiever kind of personality. Like if there's a top award you can get, that's the one I want to get.
And national board would be that.
I graduated summa cum laude. Like there were only 4 of us that got first honor graduate. And so I wanted to be on that list. So I think we'll circle back to that in a little bit when we talk about the lesson my dog taught me. But so after teaching for 5 years and earning my NBCT, my kiddos came along. And so I stepped out of the classroom to be at home with them. And 3 years after Jonas was born, Susanna came along and I started preschooling Jonas. And then 3 years later, my youngest one was born. And so then I had a first grader and a homeschool preschooler and a baby. And at that point, we'd been in Cincinnati for 5 years for my husband's training. And so then we moved to Owensboro. And in looking up this new town we were headed to, I found out there was no La Leche League. And it had been a big part of helping me as a mother, kind of getting parenthood, trying to figure out the kind of parenting I wanted to do. I had made really good friendships that went beyond just, here's what to do if you have a plugged duct, like nursing problems. And so those people became some of my best friends. And when I found out there wasn't one in Owensboro, I thought, well, then I'll just get certified and I'll be a leader. And you have to start training with another certified leader. So I started working on that before we left Cincinnati. And so by the time we moved to Owensboro, I only had 2 or 3 requirements left, and I was able to finish those at a distance. And so then I led La Leche League for 4 years or so while I was homeschooling and taking care of tiny babies. And so then when my youngest was about 4 and was no longer nursing, there had just kind of been a shift in the number of people who kind of needed my services. And luckily the town, like we've gotten IBCLCs, and the lactation department at our hospital has really developed. So I felt like I could step down and I wasn't leaving people in a lurch. There were still good services and good advice to be found. And so at that point, then all of my kiddos had transitioned from homeschooling to a traditional school setting. They were in private schools at the time. And so instead of just, okay, do I jump back into a classroom myself? What am I going to do next? There's that, people always say to moms, when you get to where, especially if you've had several kids in a row, the youngest one is going to start preschool or kindergarten, and they go, what are you going to do with all your free time?
Right.
Well, I mean, I've still got 3 humans to keep alive. And at that point I had 2 dogs and a husband and a house. I had plenty to do. But okay, let me think about what I'm going to do next. And so I have several volunteer gigs that I kind of juggle, but I decided, I was turning 35 and I decided I wanted to write a book. I'd been talking about it for years. And so I wrote my first manuscript in about 6 months and got it to the point where I was sending it out to agents and doing that whole dance. And I got a lot of wonderful, encouraging, thoughtful rejections, which was just part of it. I mean, that's just part of how it goes. And so I took a few months to sort of lick my wounds and feel sorry for myself, and then jumped back in and started writing a new one. So I'm back in the query trenches with a brand new manuscript right now. And in between writing sort of long form fiction, I blog at Words to Spare, and I post silly things about family stuff and devotional thoughts and things that hopefully like when people used to come to LL meetings and leave feeling seen and encouraged, I hope that people walk away from those posts feeling sort of seen and encouraged in wherever they're at as women, as wives, as moms.
For sure. So I had a thought as you were laying out your stories. I'm going to totally switch gears on people, but people who follow Scattered Woman will totally understand where this is coming from. So I'm hearing you talk and saying, well, I was going to this town and they didn't have one. So I just decided I should start one. Like, yeah. That is like the choleric personality to a T. So I don't know if you know what your personality types are, but I am a melancholy choleric. And so I want things done the right way, and I want them done my way.
I'm not really
I am very much
Enneagram geek, but I don't know as much about I know it's melancholy and choleric, and I don't even know the other 2, I don't think. Aren't there 4? Phlegmatic?
Yeah. Phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholy, and choleric.
I got it. Okay. That might be the next thing I have to deep dive into. I love personality stuff.
Yeah. I've got a lot of it over on the blog. You can go binge.
Okay, I will. I will take the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really want to do at some point, probably this fall, is just do a full online training about the personalities. I used to do in-person presentations and things for churches and youth groups and stuff on the personalities and how we use them to improve our relationships, and I've kind of taken that into the online world, and I would love to start that back up again. But I was listening to you talk, and that was all I could think.
And an interesting connection to the work world too, because then like, if you're the kind of person that goes, oh, there isn't one, I'm just going to do one.
Right.
These are the kinds of jobs that are going to really appeal to you because they let you like satisfy that urge. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. So yeah. And you can look at my career history and say, oh, well, there was a gap here. So she just decided to step in and fill it. Like that. I totally understand that. That is very much me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Too funny. Okay. So personality side trip.
Yes.
Over.
Little sidebar.
I'm sure it'll come back at some point, but there we go.
Yes.
So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about the post that you wrote for Scattered Woman, the Must Love Dogs post. I'd love for you to just tell us how that came to be and really what you learned through it.
Okay. Well, it started because whenever we moved to Owensboro, we adopted a little black lab from the Humane Society, and he was about 1 year old, and he was the sweetest thing. Mm-hmm. And when he was about 6, I think he was about 6, my husband said, at some point he's going to get too old to really play with the kids, and they'll be young teenagers when he passes, and that's really hard for kids. So maybe we should get a puppy. And at first I was like, I've already got 3 people to keep alive and fed and to clean up after. I don't know if I want a puppy. But then he started researching Weimaraners. And I've always loved Weimaraners. They're such a beautiful breed, and they're really companion animals. They've got a really sweet temperament. And we found a litter up in Indiana that was not too far away. And so we adopted Piper. And then when she was 2, her mom and dad actually had another litter, and we adopted her little brother, Porter. But I have never been as crazy about a dog as I am about Piper. She really bonded with me from the minute we picked her up, and just wherever I am in the house, she's usually right at my feet. She will, if I'm gone and my husband puts her in her little puppy crate, she'll happily lay down and take a nap for hours. Even if I walk in the house, at first, she'll still be happily sleeping. But if she hears my voice, she starts whimpering that she wants to get out. She wants to be with me. And I've never been as crazy about any creature other than like human beings as I am about this dog. I love these dogs so much that I created them their own Instagram account. And so I constantly, because I'm taking so many pictures of them, and I thought people on my Facebook and my Instagram do not care that much about these dogs. So I made a separate Instagram. And because I'm constantly taking photos. Well, one day she was on the window bench in my living room in the little sunny patch. And I took a photo and I teased it over into black and white with the filters, and I was getting ready to write a really sappy caption about just how much I loved this dog. And it was really the Holy Spirit's conviction that as much as I love that dog and as much time as I have spent researching her breed and what she needs and the best foods and all these things, it is so much more important that my motivation for the way I study him should be motivated by that kind of love. And so I typed up sort of a short version of that in a caption and put that up on Instagram and Facebook. And that's when you saw it and said, hey, you could expand on that idea. I feel like there could be more to say there.
Oh, yeah,
so
for sure.
I encourage you to make that a little bit longer.
Yeah. I love when we can take these, everyday things, and God's just like, oh, by the way, tap, tap, tap. This is what you should be learning about me in the process. Are you ready?
Right. And I really believe that God uses our relationships to teach us about himself over and over and over again. And so whether you're in a marriage or whether you're parenting or whether you're raising dogs, whatever it's going to be, the way that you're in relationship, because God created relationship and he is in relationship himself all the time with the Trinity. And so, human relationships get broken. They're not perfect examples, but if we allow him to speak to us, they really can communicate a lot about the way relationships should work and what he intends and what it should be at its best. So yeah, I love those relationship moments that set off those light bulbs.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And as moms, we get that all the time.
Oh,
right. Yeah. There are so many times where we're sitting down and we're, feeding our kids, we're playing with our kids, and God's going, do you see this? Do you see how much you love your kid? Okay, that's how much I love you even more.
There's so many times that I've needed to discipline my kids through something and talk to them through something and coach them and teach them something. And they're doing it on this level. And I have felt God telling me, yeah, but you do that kind of on this level. Like you're a grown up and you're still wrestling against my authority or, whatever the case may be. So yeah, as long as we stay open, I think there's a lot that he wants to teach us through our relationships.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've got so many different posts up on Scattered Woman that are just devotionals that we've written. I know a friend of mine has written a couple just based on her parenting experiences. I've got a couple up on the things that I learned from watching My Little Pony with my daughter.
I've had a few inspired by Disney moments. So yeah, I feel that.
Right? Yes. I told someone recently, I was like, I have another post coming. It's like in my head and it needs to happen, but I haven't had time to do it yet. On what's it called? Rise of the Guardian.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That one needs to happen.
That's the one with all the mythical characters. It's got like the 6.
Yes. And Jack Frost is like the hero.
Yes.
Oh, it was so good. Okay. I won't go off on that tangent. But I mean, so many things that we can learn. And it's just, it's really cool that God takes everything in our world and really just brings it back to him and our relationship with him. And I love it. I love it. So good. So we've been talking about this so much and we've gone in circles. I'm going to have to look at my notes and be like, okay, where were we going to go with this? We get really excited on these interviews and we just kind of go. We just go. Career stuff. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, just with your kind of career trajectory.
Yeah.
And we focus over in the Mom Career Restart group, and a lot of times here on Scattered Woman as well, just about restarting our careers as moms and how that works for us, and finding career options that really fit with our new priorities as moms, because our career priorities, you know, when we're single and we're young, are totally different than once we're married and have kids. Mm-hmm. So I was really thinking about how this concept, you know, relating that love you have for your dog with the love we want to have for God and his word.
Right.
And kind of taking that and thinking about a career path. And that's how we want to choose our careers. We want to choose something that we love, because if we're doing work and we just are doing work because we're doing work and we hate it, then our kids are seeing us do that. They're seeing us working and learning to despise work, where, you know, God tells us over and over again that work is good. Work has purpose and meaning. And we want to be living that out for our kids and showing them that we can love our work. Even if it's not necessarily a job that we love, we can love doing it.
Yes, right.
So, oh my goodness, I'm still going off on a tangent.
That's all right.
So I guess, are there any other areas, you know, with career or with anything else in our world that you can really see that must love dogs lesson playing out?
Yeah, I loved that question. I loved thinking about framing it around work. And a couple of things that came to mind were, I think you sort of phrased it, and she sent me some little preview questions, so I would kind of know what to get myself into. And she said something about, you know, are we teaching our kids to value work, or are we teaching our kids to despise work? And I thought that, I think that's just such a valuable thing to consider, that we can absolutely model doing things motivated out of love in so many different areas. And so the post came at the sense of, when you're studying God's word and when you're praying and when you're doing quiet time or when you're going to worship, are you doing it out of a sense of obligation and I'm just checking off the boxes? Or are you really doing it motivated out of love, seeking to spend time with the God who loves you? And goodness, that's absolutely something that can happen with work. You can just check off the boxes. It's a drudgery, you know, put my nose to the grindstone, or you can really do it out of love. And even if it's something that maybe it's not your passion, maybe it's not the career that you envisioned, but if you can do it out of love for something about who the people that you're serving, or the coworkers that you're beside, or the simple fact that you're modeling for your kids and your family how to have a good attitude, how to do everything as working for the Lord and not for men.
Exactly.
But the other thing that I was thinking about is also the way that we frame our spouse's work. Because a lot of times as moms, especially if we are working at home, sometimes there can be that separation where, like, if dad's going to work and mom's here, mom's work might not be seen and valued the same way. And so, like, the way we talk about it with our kids, in my house, dad is on call a lot, and sometimes he misses fun events or he misses special days. Sometimes he has to travel for trainings and work things take him away. So, you know, when your spouse is away for business, are your kids hearing you gripe that he gets to go have a night in a hotel and get a good night's sleep and I'm here at home doing all the work? Or are we saying, gosh, I'm so thankful that dad is working hard and he's learning more so that he can be a better, whatever his career is, you know? if we frame it in a way that we're explaining to our kids, we love that hard work that they're doing because it's part of being a family. We love their continuing education. I have a family friend who is back in school, like working full time and back in school, and her husband works. Like, that's a lot. But she was sharing that whenever she needs to be, like, she'll take a Saturday to go to a coffee shop and work and study, and her husband is with the kids. And instead of saying, like, gosh, this stinks that mommy's not with us, he's talking about it in a way like, we are so proud of mommy. She's working so hard. She's going to get that degree. She's going to get that next job. And it's so encouraging to her because it's hard for her to be away from the kids, but that makes things
sure.
And so I think that we can, that's a way that we can do things motivated from love instead of just work. That job takes that person away from me. If we can see the love in it, the love that motivates them to do it, their love for the work, the way that God's using them in whatever that work is, that can be another positive spin for our kids.
For sure. Oh my goodness. I had never really even thought about talking about our husband's work that way. I mean, I talk to moms all the time, but really being able to talk to our kids, talk to other people in a way that is building up our spouses.
Right. Because I know, like, my husband's support when I decided to do this crazy writing thing, and like, I'm even going to spend money on it. I'm going to go to a conference. I'm going to take a course. The fact that he is super encouraging, or will say to the kids over dinner, aren't you proud of mom? She said she wrote 1,000 words today. Those little things build me up. And so I want to do the same thing for him. And I've talked to adults whose parents sort of belittled the career path that one of the parents or the other was in. They were like, I never wanted to be a doctor or whatever because my mom, like, she hated how busy he was, or the words we say really have an impact on our kids' perception of different types of work.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I think can be good is whatever career. A lot of families seem to have, like, there'll be a whole line of teachers in a family, or a whole line of police officers, or a whole line of doctors, or whatever. And so it's, we want our kids to be like, I could be a this because my granddaddy did that. I could be that because, so when we speak about their lineage of work, like, you've got hard workers in your family, you've got brave men and women in your family, you've got whatever it is, whether that's military or law enforcement or, public service. If we build up the work that they have in their families, we really give them that sense of, I could do any of those things. And that kind of hard work isn't something to be afraid of. It's not something to shirk from. That I think that can also be a really positive thing that moms might not even realize, but those little stories and those little words that you drop into your kids' ears really add up and make a difference.
Oh, yes. I mean, we've talked a lot just in the thinking about, applying for jobs and doing interviews and even, trying to get clients for a virtual assistant business. Like, the way that we speak and the way that we speak to ourselves makes a huge difference in our results. Because if we're constantly telling ourselves, you're dumb, you can't do this, you're never going to find clients, then that's what's going to happen. Because we have to really, God tells us our words are powerful. We need to take that seriously. And you're absolutely right that saying that about our spouses and their characters, saying that about, their work, about all of those things, that's huge, huge. I mean, your title of your blog is Words to Spare, and words are powerful, people.
Absolutely.
Man. Okay. Any other things we want to talk about in that realm before we move on?
The one other thing that I was thinking about is even volunteer work, because that's something that I do a lot of right now in this season of my life. And there have been things that I've started thinking, this is going to be such a good fit for me. Like, I'm going to really get to use the skills that I have to offer, or I'm really going to get to serve a set of people who need my help. And there have been times that I've needed to stop and quit. I've quit so many things, not because they weren't great organizations or great investments of time, but I started to sort of lose the love for that particular thing. Either I was serving in a way where I wasn't using my skill set the best, or I was serving in a way that I started to feel burned out. And so I think like recognizing that, like, even in your volunteer work, sometimes we tend to talk down that type of work to ourselves, but even if it isn't bringing a paycheck home, it's still work, and it's still a contribution, and it's still something that helps your community. And that should happen that should be motivated out of love too. And so, I really love the scripture. I wrote it down because I was afraid I would mess it up. So it's Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters or bosses or whatever you want to say there.
Mm-hmm.
Since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. And if you can no longer do that volunteer work with a pure heart, that you're doing it for the Lord, if it becomes resentment and whatever, then it's time to step down and find a different way to serve. Because your work is valuable, and your time is valuable, and your heart is valuable. And so the things where you feel when you are motivated by love, then the work you do is really going to make the biggest impact.
Absolutely. Okay. So that verse, I had actually written down on a card and was memorizing my senior year in college, because we were living in a house and we had to clean our own bathrooms. And I despise cleaning bathrooms.
Toilets are the worst.
So yeah. I remember vividly standing in the downstairs shower, scrubbing the walls and repeating that verse on repeat. Do it as if unto the Lord, repeat.
That's excellent.
So maybe I need to do that again now.
I heartily approve.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, I mean, I've written before about how cleaning is so not my thing. So not. Maybe I need to repost that scripture. Work on it again. I'm going to scrub the shower as unto the Lord. Okay, here we go. Perfect. Oh my goodness. So what have been some of those big challenges that you've come across as you've been, playing out this Muscle of Dogs lesson, and how really everything has to be motivated by love?
I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is the fact that my personality type is very motivated by, I'm a type A. If you know the Enneagram, I'm a 1. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I always have been. I've been blessed to be, I've had a pretty quick mind. I've been able to be in the top classes and get the top grades. And so I've got a little bit of a teacher's pet mentality, to be really honest. I really do. And, Jesus didn't ask me to be a teacher's pet. He asked me to be a disciple. And there's a difference, right? There's a big difference in following and serving and being a brown noser. And so one of my biggest challenges is that I like knowledge. And so I have to, for me, it is a conscious effort to approach God's word. And there are times to approach it for knowledge. There are times to study and to understand what root words mean, and to dig in to theology and to dig into hermeneutics and to use all those big seminary words. Those are good things. But when your wheelhouse is to stay up here in your head, then I think the challenge is to move it into your heart and to move it into your actions. And so for me, the big challenge has been to approach God's word, to have time set aside where I'm specifically not here to learn in the academic sense. I'm here just to be in God's presence. Then the other challenges have been a little bit more temporary. So one of them for me was definitely different seasons of life, because those years with newborns in the house are hard. It's hard to find time to seek God. Even if I knew that I loved him, I did not have time.
For the energy.
I didn't have time and energy to spend with my husband, who I loved, either. I mean, it wasn't just I was failing Jesus. I was letting everybody down. And I think, luckily, God is gracious, and he knows that we go through seasons like that. And if you're in a season like that, I would urge you to be gracious with yourself. Give yourself grace. Sometimes all you can manage is to keep everybody alive and to whisper a little prayer as your head hits the pillow. And I think God knows that. He knows our hearts, and that's okay. But that was a challenging season for me. And another one hit me in 2012. I lost my mom to cancer, and she'd been sick for about 18 months and passed away. She was 54. And so I'm blessed to know that she was a believer. She left a great legacy of faith. I'm confident in the hope of heaven, but grief still hit me really hard.
Oh, yeah.
And I went through, I love the phrase dark night of the soul. That was what it felt like for me. I would sit in church and I would sing songs and it felt empty. And I would pray and it felt empty. And I would open scripture and it felt flat. And so that was a time when the knowledge and the head stuff stood me in good stead. Because if you've built a foundation, if you know that God is who he says he is, then the times when your feelings don't line up are a lot easier to survive. Because you lean on the stuff that you know.
Oh, yeah.
Even though your feelings are not quite there. And that passed. That time, it took about a year, maybe 13 months, but I will never forget the feeling of being in church and the music was playing and I'm singing along and I started crying every Sunday, like I just cried and cried and cried. And I started crying, but all of a sudden I felt that John Wesley talked about a burning in his bosom. I spent many years living as a Methodist, and so I love that phrase. I felt that warmth, that sensation, that presence of the Lord, and I lifted my hands and it didn't feel empty. I knew that I was back in the presence of God. And what's funny about that phrase is I had always been in his presence. He had never left me. He had not forsaken me. It's just that my feelings weren't lining up with reality for a while. But that was the season when it was really hard to be motivated by love, because I felt all the other emotions instead of love.
Right.
But so for anybody that's listening, that's kind of in that kind of space, I would just say, hold on to the parts you know, because your feelings will come back in line with reality. And the love that, when it's kind of mismatched in your own heart, that's okay. Because God's love is constant. It is constantly there. And so when everything kind of lines back up for you, the feeling of being back home in God's embrace, it makes that dark night of the soul part so much more bearable, and so such an important part of your journey, and something that you use later to help other people. So don't be beat down on yourself if that's kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah. Oh man, for sure. I mean, going back to, we talk about this all the time because we do. Like,
yes,
yeah. It does. I mean, over in the Mom Career Restart group, I've done so many trainings over the last several months where I keep coming back to, go back and think about all the junk that you've gone through, because God doesn't waste anything.
That's right.
I went through my own cancer journey. I've, been a stay-at-home mom. We've struggled financially. Like, all of these things are hard, but God doesn't waste those. And I don't want to just let them sit on a shelf and kind of fester and turn gross and turn my heart bitter and black.
Right.
I want to be able to turn that back over and say, okay, God, what are we going to do with this?
Yeah.
Because I can't just let it keep killing me. I have to do something with this.
Exactly. Because God's in the business of redemption, right? And so the stuff that's hard and the stuff that's the worst moments become the things that inform the next steps you take, or become ways that you reach out to other people that are hurting. And so, yeah, his plan for you is not to let that sit and fester and corrode. It's to bring new life and to have something beautiful bloom out of whatever that stump is. Yeah.
Oh man, no wonder you're a writer. Like, all these visual things, I'm going, oh my gosh, I can visualize all this. So this was not part of what we talked about, but tell us about what you're working on writing wise now.
Well, the manuscript that I'm working on sending out right now is fiction. It's Christian fiction about, well, it's a dual timeline story. So back in 2000, we meet a grandmother who's raising her 8-year-old granddaughter because her family's been shattered by addiction. And when she gets a letter from her incarcerated daughter-in-law asking her to come and visit, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure if that's my computer. Is it bothering you?
I'm not hearing it, but I'll check.
Okay. Whenever she gets a letter from her incarcerated daughter-in-law, she has to decide if the faith she's claimed for her whole life really requires her to show up. Like, can she just forgive from a distance? That's kind of her struggle. And then in the other half of the book, it's 2019, and the little 8-year-old's all grown up, and she's mourning the death of her grandmother. And when her mom is up for parole, she has to decide if she's willing to face someone she hasn't seen in 20 years. And if that faith stuff that her grandmother believed in is something that she buys, because she's kind of seen all the bad parts of life and she doesn't quite believe it. And so it goes back and forth between their stories. And I love it. I love these characters. It's set in a small town, a fictional small town in Tennessee that feels very real in my head. Like, when I drive through Tennessee, I feel like I'm going to spot it at any minute. But I made it all up. So writers are a particular brand of crazy. But anyway, so that's what that story's about. And I'm also working on another new one about a lady who decides to rescue some horses. And I have no idea what that one's going to be about yet, because it kind of comes to me as, you know, the characters show up and start talking. So we'll see what that one ends up being about.
Yep. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I met a woman who rescues horses. Like, that's her job at one of my personality conferences.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. That's kind of where that story came from. I met someone who does that, and I started thinking, what would make someone get into that line of work? And what does that feel like? And what do you do when something goes wrong? And thus the story was born.
Very fun. All right. So if we've got mamas watching and they're going, oh man, that sounds like a fabulous book, how do I hear more from this woman? Where's the best place for them to find you? Okay.
Well, my website is www.michellenebel.com. And I think we'll have the link up because it's a weird last name. It's all right. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Michelle Nebel, and I'm on Facebook, just kind of personally on Facebook, but my Twitter and Instagram and blog are definitely where all the news will be announced if the book ever sees the light of day. So fingers crossed, maybe it'll make it to a bookshelf. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be so fun if it did. All right. So you tell me if this is correct. MichelleNebel.com.
That's it.
Perfect. So that's where they can find you.
That's right.
All of the social media handles you've got.
That's right. If my style devotional is their jam, they can sign up for the email list there, and it'll come straight to their inbox when I post them.
Yes. So if you must love dogs, you definitely want to get on Michelle's email list. Do you have a sign up box on your website that they can go to if they want to hop on that list?
It should be sidebar on desktops, and I think it might be at the bottom if you view on your phone.
Okay. Awesome. We will check that out. So if y'all want to hear more from Michelle, be sure to hop on her list. I'm sure those devotionals are fantastic. I am hardly ever checking email, or I'd be like, yes, let's do it. But I have a feeling they would sit there and I would never look at them. Unless it's business, I tend to not look at my email.
You got to pare down somewhere, right?
Maybe I'll pare down enough that I can add yours and I'll actually see it.
There you go.
We'll work on that. All right, Michelle, any parting thoughts for us?
Well, I just wanted to thank you for having me on. This was a fun conversation, and I so enjoyed getting to guest post and getting to know some of your folks that are in your crew. So I really love what you're doing. I think you're making a big difference for a lot of moms.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. All righty, ladies. I'm so glad that several of you got to come join us live. If you are watching the replay, please leave any comments, questions, thoughts that you have for Michelle in the comments, and we will both be popping in and out and giving you feedback and keeping the conversation going. So if you would like to talk to Michelle more, she's given you all the ways that you can do that. If you would like to follow me, you can always follow the Scattered Woman Pursuing Purpose page, or you're welcome to come over and join the Mom Career Restart group. We do a live training every Thursday on a different mom career topic. We're exploring all the different things and helping you find the one that is best for you. So that's what we've got for you this week, y'all. I am so glad that Michelle got to come join us. Yay. As she said, this is so fun. This is like my favorite thing to do, is actually sit and do these interviews. So thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, y'all.